My story tonight will be about people I've worked with. I have a tendency, I don't know if everyone does, as you get older, you remember all the great things you do, and sometimes you forget some of the people that added such a great value to your life. And I had two men that contributed to the beginnings of our company. Terry and I were friends with both. And the wonderful thing about them were they were absolutely different. They were different in the universe. One, his name was Ray Isaac, and the other was a salesman. And his name just slipped me, Terry. What is it?
You never know.
Eric. Eric Edmondson. Eric was sort of a big guy, and he always had sort of a slouch, and he walked, and he always was grumpy. He grumped about everything. And I loved Eric, but you know, he was and you know what he did for me? He was my salesman. Eric would go out and sell everything. He met me at a sales show, and he came over and said, "Here's my competition. I'm selling this software over here." He said, "Let me look at your system." And I showed him all features. He says, "I like yours better than the one I got. Can I work for you?" He said, "I'll work on commission." I said, "Sure, Eric." And he went to work for me, and he brought me into Indian tribes, and he brought me all over the country. He brought me to New York City. Brought me to New York City, and we demoed to some of the major nonprofits in the world. And he brought me in, got me into Florida in mental health centers. Eric was a salesman, and he was a grump. And he was a grump when he sold. I have never seen such a weird technique. But I loved Eric. Eric is still my friend. Eric, all of a sudden, when he's selling for me, he's selling really well. He came up to me, he says, "Roland, you're not selling big enough for me. I got to go sell in Washington, D.C. for something much bigger." He says, "I'm leaving in a week." And I talked to Eric after that, but he left me. And he was the best salesman I ever had. But he would walk by and he'd grump. My other friend, his name is Ray Isaac. And Ray, when Terry and I worked at a hospital, St. Rose Hospital, Hayward, California, I, in my wisdom, picked a new computer for him that wasn't tested. And I thought all computers had languages because I worked on them and I have done programming. I got it. I says, "I'm going to write a hospital system." I got it in there, and they didn't even have a language. And I talked to this fellow that sold me the system. I said, "What am I going to do?" He says, "I got someone that might be able to work with you a little." I says, "Bring him in." He says, "Don't be surprised." And in walks this thin guy, thin kid. He came in and he says, "Hello, how are you? My name's Ray." I said, "Hi, Ray, how are you?" "I'm fine." "Ray," I asked, "can you help me?" He goes, "Yeah, I can help you." I says, "Ray, is something wrong?" He says, No. Ray had demons. And he shared them with me later. He never told me what they were like. But I got about Ray. When I first walked in there, I heard something in the outside room saying, "Oh, you brought in Crazy Ray to help him, huh?" Well, the funny thing about Ray was, Ray would start working on things, and he would look and he would just sit there and do nothing for about 10 minutes, and then he'd have these steps in logic that would defy humans, and he'd go and he'd code for about 15 minutes, and he'd come out with wonderful things. He was so wonderful. His mind would go places that I couldn't even comprehend. And for me, I looked and I said, the places his mind goes, he probably is a mystic. So I always accepted Ray as a mystic. And Ray and I worked together for about 7 months. And Ray was weird because, I mean, besides looking over his shoulder, and then, you're not getting me, and talking. Besides doing that, he had a computer sense of humor. Now, I was sort of panicked about getting this stuff done. But I would come in and I would sit down, and I would hit the keyboard, expecting something that I needed coming up, and all of a sudden, arrows and lightning would appear on my screen. And I look over at Ray, and he goes, I look at Ray, and I say, Ray, I'm sort of panicked here. He says, it was cool, wasn't it? I said, yeah, it was wonderful, Ray. It was really, really it was cool. I mean, that was magic stuff he created on the screen. This is before all of the graphics we had now. Ray was magic. Well, Ray and I worked together, and then I left and went in our own business. And Terry and I got a call from Ray and says, can you hire me at your new place? And I didn't really need Ray, but Ray was a soul that I really liked. So I said, sure, Ray, I'll work with you. Come on and join. So Ray and I went out, and he helped me a little bit. He didn't fit because I didn't need that magic type program anymore, because I was on a higher level where it was easier programming. But I remember we went down to LA, and somewhere Ray gave me directions after I did a demo, and he brought me up into this place, and he says, just a second. And I looked and I said, it was a big sign out front. It says something like Spiritual Center of the Universe or something, a sign. And I watched Ray disappeared. And I says, uh-oh. Well, I hope he comes back. And I was there. I finally took a nap in the car, because I know how to take naps in cars. I'm great at taking naps in cars. And all of a sudden Ray came back. Man, he says, these people are wonderful. They are so wonderful, Roland. He says, they know all about the demons. I says, that's wonderful, Ray. Let's take off. Well, Ray was so excited for the next 8 hours going back home. He had multiple conversations with his demons. And all the way home, he would talk to one on this side, and he'd talk to one on this side, he'd talk to one up above. A week later, I got a call from Ray's mother. And she said, Mr. Willits, I want to thank you so much for helping with Ray. He loves you. But Ray found a new home down in the Santa Ana Mountains. And he's going to be leaving you now. But he said to thank you. Thank you.